I'm good.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being part of our council meeting tonight. John, can you please call the roll?
Sure. Sue Grodick?
Here.
Ron Van Kirk?
Here.
Meg Ryan Shockey?
Here.
Andy Selhertz?
Here.
Kathy Pucci?
Here.
Mary Belbier?
Here.
Kevin Tansky?
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We're going to open in prayer this evening. Dear Lord, we thank you for this time that we have to come together as a city and as a council and administration to discuss matters that affect our town. We thank you for the city of Brooklyn, for the residents that you have given to us here, Lord. We thank you for the administration, for the mayor and her leadership. We pray that you please continue to give guidance and wisdom. Lord, we're going through some tumultuous times here as a nation, so we pray that you'll please heal hearts. Lord, heal those that are still battling with issues coming out of COVID. Lord, we pray that you'll please give our leadership at the federal and state level wisdom as well. Father, please bless our meeting tonight. We pray that all that's said and done would bring honor and glory to you. And we pray that, that we will make decisions that benefit everyone in this city. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. First item we have on our agenda this evening are our minutes from our 2 meetings ago from September 13th. Are there any comments or questions on those?
Motion approved.
Second.
To approve, Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shockey?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Belbier?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then we have minutes from our last meeting dated September 27th. Any comments or questions on those?
Motion approved. Second.
To approve, Sue Grodick?
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk?
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shockey?
Yes.
Andy Selhertz?
Yes.
Kathy Pucci?
Yes.
Mary Belbier?
Yes.
Kevin Tansky?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, this time we have a proclamation, so I will turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. The U.S. Department of Justice estimates that 1.3 million women and 835,000 men are victims of physical violence by a partner every year. Every 9 seconds, a woman in the U.S. is beaten or assaulted by her current or ex-significant other. And 1 in 4 men are victims of some type of physical violence by an intimate partner. People who are in abusive relationships stay with their partner for a number of reasons. For example, a woman is 70 times more likely to be killed in the weeks after leaving an abusive partner than any other time in their relationship. The National Domestic Violence Hotline will assist anyone. Please call 1-800-799-SAFE. Locally, we have the Domestic Violence Child Advocacy Center in Cleveland, which is 216-391-4357. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. At this time, we'll have the public session. If anyone in the audience has anything to say for the good and welfare of the city of Brooklyn, please step forward, state your name and address, and you'll be recognized. Please remember to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer. Right, and there is no one. This evening, we have our City Center project team with us tonight, and so based upon the information that was discussed at the last meeting, we're going to open it up now to council for any questions. I know we did have a couple of them that were here for the committee of the whole meeting, but does anyone else on council have any questions that they would like to ask our mayor? Any comments you'd like to make?
I would just say, if Jason, you can come up and just give a brief overview for the public, high level, recapping our work session. Although it was a public meeting, this one is taped, so it helps get out the information.
Yeah. All right. Well, good evening. Jason Oldie, owner's rep, GPD Group, 1228 1228 Euclid Avenue, Suite 320, Cleveland, Ohio 44115. We are here today with representatives from Bowen and Panzica to discuss the resolution 2021-35 and answer any questions, as Council President Van Kirk indicated. First off, I just want to say personally, I'm just thrilled that we are here at this point. I think, there's obviously been a lot of work that has occurred between the team here and between the administration and City Council to really develop what I think is going to be a great landmark and beacon for the residents and for the city, and it's going to be a building that will be here for a long time. So I'm just really happy that we're here at this point. We are, the resolution, I guess, is the GMP, the guaranteed maximum price. It is based off of competitive bidding that Penzica orchestrated. Once the drawings were fully developed to the point where layouts and major decisions with materials and systems have been established, the GMP came in at $23,791,985, which does include the cost of the early site package, which you see in front of the recreation center, the parking, any construction manager fees and contingency, in addition to the hard costs that were part of the city center itself. The process to actually get to that number did include a lot of value management discussions and considerations to try to minimize and offset some of the material escalations that we have seen. And as briefly discussed as well, there is an alternate price that we included for the firing range, which we've had some discussions on and looking for feedback. So with that, let's see if there's any questions.
I just have one question. I meant to ask it last meeting, we ran out of time, but we haven't locked in the price of steel yet. Do we anticipate when that's going to be?
I locked it in.
Oh, it's locked in now? Okay, very good. Excellent. So are there any changes based upon? Very good. Okay. Council?
No, I think we, at the committee of the whole, we expressed that it's going to be important for us in making a decision whether to move forward with the firing range, either in whole or in part, to get some good estimates from you so we can make an informed decision.
Yeah, we spoke a little bit between the meetings. We'll provide you with a couple of different levels, and then also provide you what our best estimate would be if we did do it in the future, so you have an understanding what that escalation cost would be.
And just for the public, since they don't have this, well, I guess they can do it on board docs, but the cost to build the shell for right now for the firing range would be around $800,000, and then to fully equip it with everything would be an additional $886,000. So you're looking at $1.8 million, somewhere in that range, in addition to what we're already paying for the firing range. And so those are obviously the discussions that, what's that? In addition to the building, right, to add on to the firing range. And of course, being over budget as we already are, those are some decisions that we have to make. So thank you, Jason, for that. Any other comments or questions for Jason or for Chris or for Robin from Bowen? Anything else? All right. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time.
You just stick around, or?
No, that's why we did it now, so you're free to leave.
All
You're
right,
welcome to stay, but you're free to leave.
Thanks.
All right, we'll now move on with our reports of committees, commissions, and boards. We'll begin with the Finance Committee. We did meet at our regularly scheduled time this evening at 6:15 prior to the start of our Committee of the Whole meeting to discuss the following. Well, just to make mention, Council did meet last Monday to discuss the 2022 capital budget, and the proposal for that is on in first reading this evening. I'll give some more details on that in a moment. Our next meeting will be on November the 1st. We will discuss the expenses, the general fund expenses for 2022. We also will have some further discussions regarding the capital budget as well. And of course, that takes place on November 1st at 6 p.m. Over in the Senior Center. It is a public meeting. You are welcome to attend if you would like to. Additionally, as was just mentioned, Penzica, Bowen, GPD were all at that meeting as well to talk about the City Center project. We are seeing or have seen a 10.3% increase over what was budgeted for the project. That equates to a total cost of just under $2.5 million in increases. And these increases will not increase the amount of debt that the city is taking out to pay for this facility. We will pay for these overages from the funds that we anticipate to be in excess for 2021. And the costs of things are increasing rapidly. Every resident in Brooklyn knows that when they go to fill up their tank of gas. I was curious today, so I looked at what the price of gas was 1 year ago today. Nationwide average, it was $2.16. Our nationwide average today is $3.27. And so that's a 51% increase. Food prices are up, clothing prices are up, and the construction industry is no exception. We received some information from our City Center team. This was put out by the Association of General Contractors from February to July of this year. The construction industry has seen an increase of 31% for copper, 51% for aluminum, 63% for polyethylene, which is what's used to make plastic, 31% increase in PVC, a 36% increase in steel prices, and that was just up through July. We've only seen those increases even more so through September, so that's why you're obviously seeing the larger increases here. We did have a discussion about this in June, about how at least I anticipate those increasing throughout the summer months, and unfortunately that's proven true. We've now locked in all the pricing, so as was just mentioned by Chris from Panzica, those prices are locked in now, so that is a good thing. The good news is that despite these increases, we still are on track to finish the project on time and with no additional debt to the city, as well as no increased taxes, as was promised when we first started talking about this many years ago. And so we will pay those increases for that cash on hand. The items we discussed in the Finance Committee this evening were Resolution 2021-38, and this is up for third reading adoption, and the committee recommended council adopt, and that was to purchase the property at 7468 Memphis Avenue from the Denise Zappa Trust, trustee of the Zappa Family Trust, and that is the property located over on Memphis Avenue next to the vacant land, which is next to the convenience store. We purchased the vacant land, approved it at our last meeting. This would purchase the house, and that's for $125,000. Resolution 2021-30 is up for a third reading adoption, and this is the Job Retention and Creation Grant Agreement with NBW. They were here 2 meetings ago to talk about this grant. As part of this agreement, NBW will maintain a payroll of at least $5 million by the end of their first year, $5.3 million by the end of their second year, and then $5.5 million by the end of their third year, and then for 7 years after that. So a total of 10 years. In return, Brooklyn will issue a grant in the amount of 30% of their total income taxes paid in year 1, 25% in year 2, and 20% in year 3. Next was Resolution 2021-34. This is on first reading, but needs to be passed by suspension of rules due to a timing issue. And this is our contract with the Cuyahoga County General Health District for health services for 2022 and 2023. That cost for 2022 is $68,154, up from just over $60,000 from 2021. And then for 2023, the cost would be $74,969. Next was Resolution 2021-35, and this is amending Resolution 2021-24 for those increases for the City Center project. And as I mentioned a moment ago, those increases total $2,475,376, which is a 10.3% increase over the resolution that was adopted earlier this year. Next is Ordinance 2021-26 is up for first reading and adoption this evening, and that is the updated capital improvement plan for this current year of 2021. We actually saw a decrease of $585,000 from that due to $135,000 in reductions to the police station, or excuse me, the police capital plan, and a $450,000 decrease in the streets program. These items will be pushed to next year, the 2022 budget. And then Ordinance 2021-27, this is the capital improvement plan. This is what was discussed at our budget work session last Monday night. The total for this is $5,759,497. And once we kind of have this hashed out of exactly what we're going to spend on this, I will read through what this entails, but this is just on first reading tonight. We will discuss this further at our next budget work session, which is on November the 1st. Ordinance 2021-28 is on first reading, but we do need to pass by suspension of the rules. This is our medical insurance renewal with Medical Mutual of Ohio, and this will start coverage in January 1 of 2022 and go through December 31st of 2023. So it's a 2-year contract. The overall increase is 10.17%, and so our premium over those 2 years would be $3,030,862. Again, that's for 2 years. Again, the Finance Committee does meet at 6:15. Prior to the start of all council meetings, all are welcome to attend. We'll now move on to the Public Safety and Environmental Committee. Councilman Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. The Public Safety and Environmental Committee met on September 27th, directly after our council meeting. We discussed Ordinance 2021-20 to provide regulation of transient rentals. After discussion of the ordinance and additional changes that the committee and council would like to see about the ordinance, Kevin Butler said he'd email an updated version regarding the discussion that took place. Ron mentioned at Council of the Whole that he'll read these changes into record on the second reading today. Ordinance 2021-21, which would place a ban on transient or short-term rentals. The committee and members of council discussed this ordinance as well. And finally, we discussed Ordinance 2021-25, creating Chapter 727, commercial security, to require large retailers to adopt loss prevention security measures. Chief Milkey discussed the background of this ordinance and the importance of introducing it. The committee recommended that council adopts this ordinance. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is our Recreation Board, Councilman Tansky.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. The Brooklyn Recreation Department presents a Safety Town Trick or Treat event on October 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Brooklyn Safety Town and Grand Pavilion behind the City Hall. Children up to the age 12 come in their best costumes and enjoy the trick-or-treat prizes, activities, and more. Cost for resident, $3, non-resident, $5. Visit brooklynohio.myrec.com to pre-register and purchase your tickets online. Accepting canned food donations for Harvest for Hunger. Costume accessories such as toy guns, knives, axes will not be allowed at this event. The next Recreation Board meeting will be held on October 18th in the Rec Center Meeting Room, 7 p.m. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Next up is the Domestic Abuse Commission, Councilman Ryan.
Thank you. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic abuse is more than just physical abuse, but can include sexual, financial, digital, verbal, and emotional abuses. The Center for Journey and Healing right here in Northeast Ohio is just one organization that offers support and suggests how you can help a loved one, including listening and giving your full attention, believing what you're told, and being supportive, among other things. Learn more by visiting journeyneo.org. If you yourself are experiencing domestic abuse, know that you are not alone. The Center for Journey and Healing offers a 24/7 hotline offering support, crisis intervention, safety options, information, and referrals. You can call today at 216-391-4357. That ends my report.
Thank you. Next up is our legislative update, Councilwoman Belvier.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. We are also used to using credit cards, debit cards, and plastic of one form or another to buy almost everything we purchase. In days gone by, it seemed most everyone used cash for their retail purchases before credit cards became so dominant. Now many people don't carry cash at all. Everything is paid for by plastic. An interesting bill was recently introduced in the Ohio Senate, Senate Bill 242 by State Representative Louis Blessing, a Republican from the Cincinnati area who apparently feels that people are having problems using cash as payment for products at certain retail establishments that want only plastic. At retail includes any retail transaction conducted in person and excludes any telephone, mail, or internet transaction. There are certain other exceptions, but generally this bill requires a person selling or offering for sale goods or services at retail shall not require a buyer to pay using credit or prohibit cash as payment. A person selling or offering for sale goods or services at retail shall accept cash when offered by the buyer as payment. A person injured by a violation of this section has a cause of action to sue. It could also bring action from the Attorney General's office. It's hard to believe there are places that refuse cash, but there must be enough concern that the Senate now has a bill before it to force the acceptance of cash by retail merchants for goods and services. And that completes my report.
Thank you. The Board of Zoning Appeals will meet Thursday, October 21st at 6 p.m. to discuss the following. A request from Michelle Rivera for a variance of 5 feet to the required 5 feet from the rear lot line for an accessory structure at 7412 Del Bank. A request from LAAD Sign and Lighting for for an additional 46.55 square feet to the allowable 106 square foot, and 2 additional wall sign variants for a illuminated channel letter sign for pet supplies at 4808 Ridge Road. A request from Frank and Carolyn Wolter for 148 square foot variance to an allowable 600 square foot for a garage expansion at 4076 Apple Creek Drive. A request from Frank and Carolyn Wolter for an 18.5 foot variance to a required minimum 35 foot rear yard requirement for a house addition at 4076 Apple Creek. And lastly, a request from Frank and Carolyn Wolter for a 6.08% to the allowable maximum lot coverage of 25% for an addition at 4076 Apple Creek Drive. Again, that will take place at Thursday, October 21st at 6 p.m. right here in council chambers. This time we'll have a report from Planning Commission, Councilwoman Sue Grodick.
Thank you. The Planning Commission met on October 6th and had 2 items on the agenda. The first was a request from LAA Lad Sign and Lighting for a channel letter sign for Supplies Plus, Pet Supplies Plus at 4808 Ridge Road that was approved pending approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The second was a request from Spirit Halloween for a temporary banner for a temporary business at 4790 Ridge Road, and that was approved. The next meeting of the Planning Commission will be November 3rd at 6 o'clock in council chambers. That ends my report.
Thank you, Mrs. Grodick. The Committee of the Whole met following the Finance Committee meeting just before our council meeting, discussed the following. Ordinance 2021-20. This was already mentioned by Mrs. Ryan Shockey. This would, legislation would limit, or excuse me, would legislate short-term rental properties, Airbnbs, etc. There was a red line version that was sent to council after our last committee meeting, and we will, this evening I will read that, their legislation portion into the record and place it on second reading. We would anticipate taking a vote on that at our next meeting. Ordinance 2021-21, and this would outright ban short-term rentals in our community, and that is up for third reading as well this evening. Ordinance 2021-22 is up for third reading and adoption, enacting section 149.18, school district employees of the ordinance of the City of Brooklyn, and this would exempt employees of the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education from our Civil Service Commission. Mr. Magri from the Civil Service Commission was here a couple meetings ago to discuss this. After our last meeting, as requested by members of this council, Mr. Butler sent a letter explaining what City Council was doing with this legislation to the affected parties at the Brooklyn School Board. And so if enacted tonight, they would then be excluded from our Civil Service Commission. And then lastly was Ordinance 2021-25, creating Chapter 727, Commercial Security, to require large retailers to adopt loss prevention security measures. Mrs. Ryan Shockey just talked about this as well. This would require stores based upon their square footage to have loss prevention officers inside those facilities for a certain number of hours every week, depending on the size of that store. And of course, this is obviously to prevent loss prevention, as it says right in the title there. And again, the Committee of the Whole does meet following the following the Finance Committee meeting, right before our council meetings on all regularly scheduled council meetings. Last report we have for this evening is our school board liaison, Councilwoman Belvier.
Thank you. The school has a strategic planning committee which began this October. If anyone is interested, please contact Dr. Caleris to be part of this committee. The school district has approved the renovation and resurfacing of the Brooklyn Stadium track. Included in this renovation will include pavement work and renovation of the home concession stand. The school district conducted a facility study on October 8th to begin planning for their future capital improvement projects. One area of focus is the Brooklyn High School. Wednesday, October 13th, which is tomorrow, is Walk to School Day. Everyone in the city is invited to join Brooklyn City Schools for a community hike bike. The theme of the hike bike is Let's Hike It or Bike It with a Hero. You are asked to wear red, white, or blue to show support for all our heroes. You can meet at 7:30 a.m. at certain gathering places. The gathering places are Markquark Park, right by Heather Lane. You're supposed to meet at the playground and then we'll proceed to walk north on Heather Lane. Second gathering place is the Brooklyn Fire Department. 8400 Memphis Avenue. Please meet by the flagpole. Brock Park on the corner of Ridge and Vandalia Avenue. There you will walk north on Ridge Road to Bidoff. And the next meeting of the school board will be November 2nd at 6 p.m. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Belvier. We'll now have reports of council. Begin tonight with Mrs. Grodick.
Thank you. Just a few things. First, I'd like to extend get well wishes to Mary Jo Banish. If you follow her on Facebook, you may know that she's recently had surgery and is both very funny in her comments and both very heartfelt. So best get well wishes to her that she continues to recover. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Raguse for the very, very well thought out financial meeting. That is not an area that I'm comfortable in, and when I leave those meetings, you make me feel like I have an understanding of where our city is financially and where we plan on going. So thank you very much from someone who doesn't have a very, very well-rounded financial background.
Thank you, I appreciate that very much.
Very easy to follow. Also, I would like to thank Mr. Rowan, who I know is way over there that I can't see, but I appreciate you bringing our master plan to life. As a resident, I sat on that committee. I actually was given the advice that that committee was a waste of time because it spends a lot of time planning and nothing ever comes to fruition. And I'm so happy to see that that is not the case. This administration is taking our master plan very seriously. We're talking about it a lot, and wonderful, exciting things are happening. As you see, as we keep talking about the city center. Next up, we'll be talking about library plans. It's very exciting. And hang on, Recreation Center will be coming up too. So thank you so much for the well thought out plans from both the administration and the residents. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Groh. Next up, Mrs. Ryan Shockey.
Thank you. I usually don't like repeating up here, but I do want to echo what Sue said in regards to the finance, the budget work sessions. Mr. Raguse, you really do a really good job with those, and like Sue had mentioned, you just come out feeling so comfortable and knowledgeable, and your sessions are a great worth our time. And it was a pretty lengthy one last week, but it was well worth the time, and I appreciate everything that goes into planning those and putting those on for us. And then in terms of the master plan, I know Sue had sat on the plan. I have a background in urban planning, and so I'd like to echo what she's saying to Jeremy and to Jack over there as well. You guys both in your capital plans brought up the master plan, and with the background in master planning, I know that those plans often sit on a shelf after they're created, and you put all this effort and time into it, and our past one did for many, many years. So I appreciate that once we, with our administration, once we did adopt it, that we're actually working on putting it into place and continuing to talk about it and have it out there. So just want to echo what Sue had mentioned with all of that. One final thing, thank you to everyone who has come to our cleanups throughout this year. We are having one more official cleanup this year, this Saturday, October 16th. In coordination with Parma Ward 1 Councilman DePiero, as well as several businesses who plan on joining us as well. As always, it's a great opportunity for residents of all ages to get involved, and high school students to get their volunteer hours that they do need to graduate. We'll be meeting at the Home Depot on Brook Park Road in Brooklyn at 9 a.m. You can just show up, or you can register online at volunteer.kab.org and search for cleanups near your zip code. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Mr. Ranashaki. Next up, Mr. Selhertz.
Thank you, sir. First, good evening. I'd like to express my condolences to family and friends of Debbie Greenleaf, just now was known as Debbie Greenleaf Dixon, 1972 graduate of Brooklyn High School who passed away. Within a short time period also, her mom passed away. Debbie was active in school. That's going back to our times. I'm looking at Mr. Ardito in the audience, so he understands. Her mom was also a bus driver, so when you went on band trips or went to sporting events, teams, she was always the bus driver. They were just active in the community. As everyone mentioned, thank you to Mr. Raguse for all his efforts. He's always detailed on stuff. It's just a pleasure to work with him. You get straight answers. Sometimes you get a little bit of laughter, and it's all good. There we go. As Meg mentioned, Keep Brooklyn Beautiful. We're doing some cleanups. The last official one is this Saturday. We're going to have some businesses help us. We've contacted the business along Markquark Road and Tiedemann Road. Last year we had an outside company, Paul Davis Restoration. They came to help us with a number of volunteers. Happy to announce this year that Worthington Industries has chosen to team up with us. We're going to have about 35-40 volunteers from their companies. They have 4 plants up in the Cleveland area. So if you're driving around on Tiedemann or Brook Park, Saturday morning between 9 and 11, you see people wandering around picking up trash. That'll be us. Keep Brooklyn Beautiful also is working with Mr. Hare, the high school's principal, on some projects where students, juniors and seniors can get hours towards their graduation requirements. One of these will be on Saturday, November 6th, where students will be raking leaves in the yards of seniors. This was done probably about 4 or 5 years ago once. If you're a senior and you need help with your leaves, please contact Karen or Kathy over at the Senior Center at 216-635-4222. A little bit further away, Bubba's Yard is going to be on the 4th Tuesday of the month in the parking lot of St. Elias. There'll still be one council meeting before that, so we'll remind you. But this one's going to be for the last one for the year. That's on Thursday, October 26th. One of my little pet things talking about is the pilot project for the LED street lights. Found out this morning that the check finally got cashed by First Energy. Reason for that is First Energy would not work on the pilot project until they got paid. So now we got paid, so hopefully we're a step closer. Believe me, I'd love to see this thing get done for once and for all. In regards to 2 ordinances, 2021-20 and 2121-21, they're up for vote for tonight. I'd like to state my position. Although I have nothing against Airbnbs, I do believe for Brooklyn it is not a good fit. You can call them Airbnbs, transient rentals, short-term rentals, and anything else. The intent is still the same. Brooklyn is a small community, about 4 square miles, with residential rentals being approximately 50%. It is a small town, hopefully with a hometown feeling where people would come to buy a home and raise a family. When they buy a home, there's always a chance that what kind of neighbors you will be moving into or somewhere down the road. When your neighbors move, who else new moves in next door to you? Hopefully all that is good. When you bought the home, you bought it to be a home next to other homes and not next to a business where different people are in and out on a regular basis. If you wanted to live next to a hotel, you could have bought a home on Tiedemann by Cascade Crossing. A few years ago, City Council addressed the issue of oversized trucks in neighborhoods to address the appearance of neighborhoods. This is not much different. Although an Airbnb would, or at least should be kept up to be attractive to potential renters, it is still a retail business. This is maybe something where citizens could and should get involved with the process of updating the zoning of Brooklyn. Until then, I am not in favor of Airbnbs. And the last thing on a lighter side of things, judges will be out and about on Friday, October 29th, to take pictures of homes decorated for the annual Halloween decoration contest. Please make sure to have your lights and decorations on that evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Selhurst. Next up is Mrs. Pucci.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd also like to express my condolences to the family of Debbie Dixon and her mom. Very tragic for the family to lose 2 family members within a couple of days of each other. I heard some other sad news over the weekend. Ray Fry, who is the son of the late Jack Fry and also Greg Fry's brother, he lost his daughter, Jessica, who is a young mother. In fact, I think her child is only about a year or so old. She died very suddenly in her sleep, very unexpected. So if you could keep the Fry family in your prayers as well. Mrs. Balbier mentioned the Safe Routes to School hike and bike to school, which is tomorrow. I'd just like to thank our two chiefs. You all know how the kids really love, they really get a kick out of being able to walk and bike with our officers, and our officers do such a great job on the walk, so thank you very much. I am going to be a little repetitive. We did have the budget meeting last Monday, and I too would like to thank Mr. Raguse for all the preparation and the presentation. I know a lot of work and effort go into it, so thank you. It's appreciated. And also thank you to the directors and chiefs for all of your hard work in preparing that, and also your participation. It's very helpful when we can hear directly from all of you. About the legislation tonight, I believe the only one that's going to be up for a vote tonight is the ban on the Airbnbs, and we're not sure if we pass a ban, if it would survive a legal challenge, and it could put the city in a sticky situation with a lawsuit. And I think it's also important to know that the Airbnbs that are in existence would still be in existence because they would be grandfathered in. I do have concerns about Airbnbs in our neighborhoods. I think the legislation that Mr. Van Kirk will read some of the, or not some, but all of the revisions that we've strengthened it even further. And I do think it's a good piece of legislation that has some strong restrictions. And at the committee meeting, we also discussed the importance of holding these property owners accountable to our existing laws that we already have, just like we do our other residents and businesses. And Mr. Van Kirk will be able to explain to the public when he reads the changes into the record. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Pucci. Next up, Mrs. Belbier.
Thank you. Well, with this fabulous fall weather we've been having, I've been visiting one of the most wonderful hidden gems that our city has, and that's Markquark Park. Since I am a new grandma, I take my stroller and my little guy with me, and we walk the park. And it's just absolutely beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to get out there, I highly recommend it just for a walk and just see what's there. They have the story walks, which are, I thank you, Mr. Abruzzi, for everything, your hard work there too, and your ingenuity in implementing that. It's just wonderful. My little guy can't read yet or anything, but I go by reading it, and I can't wait till he can see it and read it himself. Also, the jungle gym that they have there, or the swing sets, are state-of-the-art, fabulous restrooms. You wouldn't be afraid to go in. And just the whole atmosphere there, it's just wonderful. It is truly a hidden gem in our city. So please get out there and enjoy the fall scenes before you know it will be over. I'd like to extend my condolences to the Rozinski family. Rich was frequented my restaurant a few times, and he was always so kind and so nice and just a pure gentleman. And I do know that he was very active there years ago at St. Thomas More, with the CYO basketball and the games and everything there. And I'd just like to extend my condolences to his family. Once again, the snow will be here before you know it. I'm just, hoping that everyone is prepared for it. And it's just a friendly reminder that we are going to have our parking ban. And it runs from November 1st through April 1st. No parking on city streets from 2 o'clock in the morning till 7, and when the snow exceeds 2 inches. So please keep that in mind. Like I said, it'll be here before you know it. Lastly, we're voting today on our legislation for the short-term rentals. I just have to speak from the heart on it, where I stand. Personally, I am not for it. I love Brooklyn. I just remember campaigning. Everybody had an issue with rentals, regardless if it's short-term or what, just rentals, period. I am totally against it. I try to see something good in it, but really I don't, and I'm gonna have to vote against it. And I get upset because Brooklyn is such a nice little town. It's the homey feeling. To me, when I look at it, I don't see any difference between having one of these Airbnbs and if I were a hairdresser and I did hair out of my basement, or if I was a garage guy and I did, worked on cars or something. You know what I mean? To me, it's a business. So that's just my opinion. I'm trying to look at the good side, but I really don't see anything good in it, and I don't think it's good for our city. And that completes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Belvier. Next up, Mr. Tansky.
Thank you and good evening. Again, I'm going to talk about these Airbnbs that these residents possibly are going to be up against here in the near future, depending how many move in. Regarding the Airbnb issue and the negative impact to our community, I would like to reiterate my stance opposing Ordinance 2021-20. This includes many rules and regulations that would need to be monitored around the clock that would severely impact our safety forces who are already at limited capacity, along with our building and service departments who also have a full schedule. I strongly support Ordinance 2021-21, which is the ban on further Airbnbs from coming into our city. Since the last council meeting, I have spoken to more residents expressing their opposition of having Airbnbs in Brooklyn. Mostly, I have been hearing much concern and worry of the safety factor of complete strangers coming in and out of neighboring houses and changing parties possibly on a daily or weekly basis. These businesses next to private homes is not a smart idea. Many residents who have grown up in Brooklyn and who are now raising their children in our city have built strong bonds and relationships with their neighbors. The thought of having an Airbnb as their neighbor would most certainly interrupt and erase such relationships. We owe it to those who have such longevity and commitment to our community. This kind of business is just not a good idea for Brooklyn. I want to thank Councilman Andy Selhertz and Councilwoman Mary Belbier for taking a firm stance against these Airbnbs in our neighborhoods. I would hope the rest of council will see these safety concerns among elderly and parents with children. Remember, most owners of Airbnbs don't live in these houses, and therefore they are not here to see and monitor them. For an owner, it's just a business, and so they don't need to put up with all the other negative factors that come along that I mentioned. The perception that Airbnb tries to foster is that it hosts are relatively typically households looking to earn supplementary income by renting out rooms in their homes or by renting out the entire residence when they're away. Critics argue that Airbnb bookings have become increasingly concentrated among relatively small number of hosts. They are essentially miniature hotel companies. The economic cost of Airbnb imposes likely outweigh the benefits. While the introduction and expansion of Airbnb into the U.S. cities and cities around the world carries a large potential economic benefits and costs, the cost to renters and local jurisdictions likely exceed the benefits to travelers and property owners. I would ask council to put safety first before allowing these types of businesses in our neighborhoods. This legislation to ban Airbnbs revolves around safety, not business or politics. Let's keep Brooklyn safe and sound for everyone. I want all Brooklyn residents to know from the bottom of my heart that whatever happens with this vote before council, I have done everything that I can to discourage this kind of business next to our homes. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Tansky, appreciate that. Just to discuss a little bit more about these two pieces of legislation, the one that we're going to vote on tonight. Mrs. Pucci brought up a point a second ago about the legalities of an outright ban, and we had a brief discussion about this at the public safety meeting, and I've asked Mr. Butler if he would expand a little bit on that, just so the residents understand what we're talking about when we talk about, I think, the phrase that Mrs. Pucci used, a sticky situation, to where to legally ban this, you have to be able to prove something constitutionally to outright ban them, which, to our knowledge, does not exist. Mr. Butler, if you wouldn't mind, please.
My comments at the Public Safety Committee meeting were that it's easier from a constitutional standpoint to regulate an existing industry or business than it is to outright ban any particular use in a city. The reason is because when you ban uses in a city, Mr. Chair, you have to create that ban based on some national or more regional studies that demonstrate the adverse impact of that use in a particular location. So, for example, we would have to, if we were to stand by the ban and it would stand up in court, we'd have to demonstrate that short-term rental uses somehow more negatively impact, for example, property values, police calls, quality of life issues, nuisance-related issues, than, say, longer-term rentals would, or regular single-family or multifamily uses would. And I have not been asked to engage in that kind of study, or to go find studies that support a conclusion that short-term rentals have that kind of impact in a neighborhood. But what I can tell you is that that issue has been litigated elsewhere in the country, in larger municipalities that have taken a very aggressive defensive position with respect to short-term rentals. And generally speaking, the short-term rental industry has won and has forced municipalities to, at the very least, settle those cases by coming up with regulations of the industry rather than outright bans. That's happened in major municipalities such as New York City, which has a robust legal staff that can defend against those actions a lot more easily than our city could. So I only raised that point at the committee meeting to demonstrate that, generally speaking, banning uses is more difficult than regulating them. And in this case, we would have to support that kind of ban with plausible studies.
And one further question, it would seem that precedent has been set in other cities to where the law has fallen on the side of the renters as opposed to the cities.
Insofar as I am aware, yes, precedent has been set that cities have not been successful outright banning short-term rentals.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Riddle, appreciate that.
Mr. Van Kirk, just while we're on the subject, can you indulge me? It would also, Mr. Butler, be extremely expensive for us to defend that position, certainly tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, if we were to go to court and actually try and defend that.
It would if we were sued. I'm not guaranteeing that we would be sued.
I understand.
But most certainly it would be expensive. I'm not so certain that that kind of action would be a covered claim or a loss under our policies of insurance. We might have to defend that out of our own pocket.
Thank you.
Very likely would.
Yes, thank you.
Hold on one second. Let me finish my report, and then we'll discuss this whenever we get to the legislation. Additionally, was not mentioned is even if we do pass this ban this evening, the current the current short-term rentals that we have would be exempt. They would not fall into this category. In other words, it would be, we don't have the right to go back and change the law on them before, when they were doing it. So right now, there's only 4 of these in the entire city of Brooklyn. It's been that number for quite some time, as far as I can tell. When I consider legislation, to me, this legislation is more looking for a problem than is actually solving a problem. That's just my personal opinion as far as it comes to outright banning them. We have 4 of these in Brooklyn right now. We have 398 single-family long-term rentals in the city of Brooklyn. Now, I know that in the committee meeting we discussed that there are issues with those, and I get that, but this legislation has nothing to do with them at all, nothing at all to do with them. So we really can't interchange the 2 of them, which is about 11% of our single-family housing stock. Also, the legislation that we'll be discussing here in a moment to regulate them will alleviate many of the concerns that members of this council have had in regards to the Airbnbs, and we'll talk about those here in a second. When it comes to safety, every single person on this council is 110% committed to the public safety of our city. When we have our discussions in our budget meetings, that is one of the first things we talk about. What can we do to further enhance that? So I fully understand where Mr. Tansky is coming from as far as this goes. I mean, it's an easy thing to pick at because you can say that, yeah, there could be some potential issues there, but the constitutionality of it is an issue. Trying to defend an outright ban, precedent's already been set that you can't do it. And I do believe that regulating this for the very few that we have in the way the legislation is written, it would be very hard for someone to come in and quote unquote set up shop here in the city of Brooklyn, because they would only be allowed to have 3 total to do that. It's not a very good business model if that's what they're going to do, if that's what their desire is. So those are my thoughts on the legislation. And of course, we can have further discussion when we get to it here in a moment, but that's my thoughts on what's going to take place tonight in regards to that. Right, with that, I will move on to the mayor, Mayor Gallagher.
Thank you, Mr. Van Kirk. 2 short things. One, the staging will be moving over for the City Center project next week. We'll get something formal on social media and out after Panzika writes it up. So we'll be removing the fence from the newly constructed parking lot and moving it over to where the new building will be built. The parking lot will have to have some temporary lighting put in there because, like many things with COVID, the lighting was behind on order, so that will be installed later on as soon as we receive it. So again, we will put out a plan for that final date when everything will move over on the fencing to close off the west parking lot and open up the new recreation center parking lot and give instructions on where to enter and exit. Also, the zoning update regulations, the citywide zoning and planning update. Just want to remind everyone that the next public meeting will be on Zoom, and it will be October 26th at 7 p.m. Next week, we hope to launch a website, a user-friendly website, so you could follow this project. We received some comments at Board Docs. It's hard to follow. So this is part of our contract with McBride Declarion. We saw from the first public meeting that there are people that, when presented with the option plan of giving feedback, they went crazy with this is going to happen, this is going to happen. It was the intent of the zoning code people to just get feedback from the residents, not like this is done, this is going to be. And so we have to be very, very conscious of what we put out to the public, because people seem to be reading into this thing. This is supposed to be a public engagement and feedback session, and that's what we truly want to make it. So we'll have this website that you can follow the entire time. When we have the zoning meeting on the Zoom, you can put comments and questions into the chat, so there can be back and forth. But with what's going on with COVID right now, we think this would be the best case scenario right now. We hope to get back into public meetings in person. We just don't know the size of the crowd. We had a decent crowd last time, so if we continue to have large crowds, we want as much feedback as possible. So again, that's October 26th at 7 p.m. And then that website, when we launch, will be put out through the city's social media and website, and an easy link to get to that place. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have any director's reports this evening, but I do want to thank Mayor Gallagher and our administration. Several of the council members mentioned this a second ago for the budget work session that we had last Monday. Another one's coming up this Monday, and I would encourage residents to come to those budget meetings. I know some people are like, I am having no problem sleeping, so I'll stay away. All right, the last one was 3 hours, and so I will warn you. But the mayor and her directors have done a very good job of tracking where every dollar will be spent the next year. And so I would encourage residents to come out. It's your money that the city is spending, and so I would encourage you to come out to those meetings and see. Several people mentioned the master plan and how that's coming to fruition, which is a good thing as well. So again, Mayor and your administration, thank you for that, and council for your hard work on that. But I would encourage residents to come out and be engaged and see where your hard-earned tax dollars are being spent here in the city. That would be great. All right, we'll now move on with our legislation for this evening. The first item we have is a liquor transfer request, liquor permit transfer request from Maritime Brooklyn LLC. I'm going to butcher this name, and I'm sorry, but L. Palenque?
Pequeña.
I was not even close. All right, Mexican restaurant at 5092 Tiedemann Road, and this is a transfer from what used to be Wild Ginger. They're located behind Cracker Barrel on Tiedemann Road. The chief has no objection, so we need a position of, I forget what it's called.
Move for a position of no objection.
Second.
Move for a position of no objection. Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Abstain.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beer.
Yes.
And Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Per council rules, when a council member abstains, they have to say why, and I always abstain from these liquor permits because my faith does not engage in with liquor, so that's why I abstain from these. Our first item this evening, our legislation, is Resolution 2021-28. This is up for a third reading and adoption. This authorizes the mayor to enter an agreement with Denise A. Zappa, trustee of the Zappa Family Trust, for the purchase of certain real property known as 7468 Memphis Avenue. The purchase price for this property is $125,000.
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Next is Resolution 2021-30, authorizing the mayor to enter into a job retention and creation agreement with MBW Incorporated, and I discussed what this entailed during the Finance Committee report. Any comments or questions?
Move to adopt.
Second.
To adopt, Sue Grodick.
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk.
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki.
Yes.
Andy Selhertz.
Yes.
Kathy Pucci.
Yes.
Mary Bell Beer.
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next up is Ordinance 2021-20, amending various sections of the codified ordinance of the City of Brooklyn to provide for regulation of transient rentals. And so I'm going to read through some of the amendments on here. This is available for the public on board docs to go through, but I will give you the highlights. Instead of calling them transient rentals, one of the major changes in this will be will be referred to as a short-term rental.
Excuse me, Ron, before we go through these two ordinances, I had questions prior to voting on this.
Oh, before we go into this one as well?
Right.
Sure. Well, let me read let me read the changes, then we'll discuss it. Absolutely. Yeah. All right. Some of the rental restrictions that will be there. Any short-term rental must be the owner's or operator's principal place of residence when not rented to a short-term rental, or be within 25 miles of the owner's principal residence, or if the owner does not reside in a location within 25 miles, there must be controlled by a property agent, manager, or caretaker residing within a 25-mile radius. A short-term rental must occupy the same dwelling unit for at least 2 consecutive rental nights. No person shall own or operate more than 3 short-term rentals in the city. Notwithstanding any other provision of the code, a short-term rental shall have at least 1 off-street parking space available for each bedroom rented by a short-term rental. Except when the owner or operator of the dwelling unit is concurrently occupying the dwelling unit with a short-term rental, no person shall permit single-room rentals to short-term rentals. As used herein, single-room rentals are rental agreements in which at least 1 short-term rental has exclusive possession of an individual rooming unit within a dwelling unit and shared access with other renters to common facilities within the dwelling unit. Then except when the owner operated the dwelling unit is concurrently occupying the dwelling unit with a short-term renter, no person to whom a rental dwelling license has been issued shall fail to post such license in a conspicuous place in the portion of the dwelling unit accessible to a short-term rental. Each rental dwelling license shall be secured by January 1st and shall expire the following December 31st and shall be effective for not more than 12 months, irrespective of the date of issuance, and it is not transferable. I believe that outside of just changing short-term rentals from transient rentals, that are all the changes. Right, one further one, operator means any person who has charge, care, or control of a building or part thereof in which dwelling unit, short-term rentals, or room units are let. I believe that is everything.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
1360.16A, the license application form as well, has been augmented to include the unique property number that is assigned by a listing service for short-term rentals.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so all short-term rentals have a number that's assigned to them, and that would need to be part of the licensing agreement for the city so that the city has access to that. Thank you, Mr. Brother.
You're welcome.
Everything else that I cover?
Yes, sir.
I believe so. Okay, so those are the proposed changes that are on Ordinance 2021-20. So I'm going to make a motion that we place this on second reading with those changes for our next council meeting.
Move to amend.
Second.
Move to amend Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Sellards,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belvier,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, it is amended on second reading. Mr. Tansky.
Okay, I have a couple questions. I'll go to Mr. Butler. Since we're opening doors to these possible lawsuits, I believe you said it was unlikely of legal action, or let's just say it was very low of legal action with these Airbnbs. Am I correct when you did say that?
It's really hard to say. I just said that I wasn't certain that there would be any sort of legal action, but I don't, you never know when an industry is going to train its sights on you.
Second question is, do we have the amount of cities that have got sued, and what was the verdict on these cities?
No, I don't have the entirety of the number of cities. I can tell you that the industry has taken an aggressive position, at least according to the national news that I read on the subject, an aggressive position with respect to the larger cities that have taken defensive postures with respect to short-term rentals. So, for example, in New York City, I gave that as an example. New York, I think probably chiefly with its interest to protect all the hotels in that city, banned short-term rentals. That ban is no longer in effect. I think the city and the industry reached a settlement on that, and now short-term rentals are permitted but regulated heavily.
And I believe New York is a heck of a difference from 10,000 residents in the city of Brooklyn.
You wouldn't have to convince me of that.
Second thing is, the business on that was supposedly trying to go in on Bidoff and Ridge was taken down not only by the commissions, but by the city council. If they filed legal action, which I would imagine, have they filed legal action against the city?
No.
No.
You're talking about the car wash
Correct.
applicant? No.
No. And that was a very popular thing going on because they pushed it pretty hard. They came here. I don't see anybody with Airbnbs coming here and saying, we want to move in your city, we're going to take legal action, or we want to present this big case against Brooklyn, or we want to present our business coming into Brooklyn. So we didn't have any of that. But we had it on the business over there, a bit off and rich, but yet no legal action.
Councilman, I'm not making any...
No, I'm just saying it not towards you, just with council and the public so they understand why 3 councilmen are against this and what's going to happen with these Airbnbs out here. And to get over to these rental properties mixing in with Airbnbs, and I believe Councilwoman Mary Belvier brought this up. There is a big difference. Rental properties normally will rent out a year, maybe less. They get evicted or don't pay rent, or a problem. Airbnbs will be rapidly, daily, weekly, monthly, however. People have to understand, when you have strangers and elderly people or anybody with children, have these people coming in and out of these houses like this, in this small neighborhood we got, is a problem. I don't care how many people support this, it's a problem. And you're right, we do get a problem with rental properties. And that's somebody that establishes hopefully a year or longer. Can you imagine this going on weekly? I've gotten emails, I've talked to residents this week. None of them are for this. I don't know where this is going, but none of them are for this. You don't have a public behind you. I'm telling you that right now. But back to these lawsuits. So we had one on the corner, a rigid bid off, that we took on, that we weren't afraid to take that on. Of course, I understand, and I'm 100% for that business not to be there because of the amount of noise and whatever else was going to go on. But we won't take on Airbnbs, which could be next to every resident around you. We don't know how many are going to move in. Or how many are in here now that we can't do anything what's going to happen with them as far as them running out. So when I hear these lawsuits and trying to tell the public this, boggles my mind when we can take on directly another company to keep them out. And that was only going to bother one resident. Maybe two, maybe three. This is the whole neighborhood.
Mr. Chair?
And that pretty much concludes what I got to say.
Yes, Mr. Butler.
I'm not challenging anything Councilman Tansky has said, and I'm not advocating on behalf of short-term rentals in any way. This is ultimately a policy decision to be set by the elected policymakers in the city, and not by its attorneys. So I'm not advocating for or against this legislation. I will say that there is an important distinction to be drawn, however, between what happened at the Planning Commission with respect to the car wash application at Bidoff and Ridge and the outcome that you're proposing, which is a ban. That car wash is a regulated industry in this city. It's regulated under our zoning code, and it obligates an applicant for a car wash to come in and get special approval in order to operate that car wash in the city. It is, however, not banned citywide, and in fact we have car washes in the city, or at least one, and those are subject to the zoning code. So I just think that's an important distinction to be made, that car washes are not banned despite perhaps their lack of popularity at that particular location. And there was a due process approval mechanism in place. The applicant went through that mechanism, was ultimately denied, and decided against further action against the city. It is not akin to an outright ban on an entire industry or use. And so I just wanted to point that out.
Let me respond to that. And I understand that, but there are some similarities. One, there's the amount of traffic coming in and out of that car wash, which you're going to have at transient rentals. Because it has happened, and we've got emails on it. It has happened. So there are some similarities when it comes to that. Two, noise. They were talking about the noise at that car wash. Well, that's exactly what's going to go on if there's a party at a transient rental. There's going to be no difference. It's going to be hanging around the street and noise. So there are a lot of similarities that are close to either one. It just boggles me how we put so much pressure against that, but we're going to allow them next to private houses throughout the city. That's what I don't understand. I will fight day and night for these residents out there to be safe and have them live in their homes without grief, period. That's how I feel. And I'm a fighter from day one when it comes to that. These residents deserve the best quiet home to live in, period. That concludes my report.
It wasn't your report, but it
That's the second report. Third.
Just one clarification, and Mr. Butler kind of alluded to it, but the car wash issue was never voted on by council. That was all taken care of at the planning commission and the zoning commission. So council never weighed in on that. We would have had much further discussion on that had it gotten to this point.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
one additional clarification. It was ultimately, at one point,
Right.
debated by council, and that's when council decided to enact the regulations that are found in the zoning code with respect to car washes. That particular application was not debated by city council.
Right.
That is true.
Right, exactly. That's the point I was making. Also, I mean, again, with the safety thing, I mean, all of us up here live in the city as well. I mean, we're all residents of this city, and we're equally concerned about safety. As Mr. Tansky is, I appreciate his passion for everything that he does, and Mr. Tansky and I have seen eye to eye on a lot of things, and this one we particularly don't, and that's fine. But are there any other comments or questions regarding this legislation? Yes.
I don't want to speak for you, Kevin, but the gist I got from all that, because you're very passionate about it, is that you felt like there was a risk with the car wash for us to get sued, just like there's a risk with this to get sued, and you're willing to take that risk because you feel like the risk is low. Did I sum that up?
Yes, because I think it's going to involve more people.
Okay.
More people. With the similarities that I brought up.
Any other comments or questions on that?
May I be recognized?
Yes.
Just to echo what Mr. Van Kirk said, every single one of us are very concerned about safety. There isn't one person up here who disregards any resident's safety in the city. And just to echo what I mentioned before, part of our discussion at this committee meeting was also how important it's going to be that we enforce the existing laws that we already have on the books when it comes to the short-term rentals, whether it's taking, or I should say not taking the garbage cans back, or any type of like a loud party. I mean, I know that the platforms prohibit parties, but it's, I get a lot of complaints about noise from homeowners that live next to other homeowners. I've heard recently that some people don't like that our ordinance for the noise is up to 11 o'clock, and I think that's something that we want to maybe take a look at. But anyways, everybody up here concerns about the safety, and I think these are very strong regulations, and that along with our existing ordinances that we're going to have to enforce should make this okay. Thank you.
Sure. All right, so Ordinance 2021-20 is on second reading. Ordinance 2021-21 is up for third reading this evening and for a vote. Amending Section 1109.01 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Brooklyn in order to place a ban on transient residential rentals.
Motion to approve.
Second.
To approve, Sue Grodick,
No.
Ron Van Kirk,
No.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
No.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
No.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
and Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-22 is up for third reading and adoption.
Just
Yes,
announce
Ordinance 2021-21 is not adopted. Ordinance 2021-22 is up for third reading and adoption, enacting Section 149.18, School District Employees of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Brooklyn in order to exempt employees of the Brooklyn City School District Board of Education from Civil Service Commission oversight. Any comments or questions on that? Right.
Move to adopt.
Second.
Second.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2021-25 is on second reading, creating Chapter 727, Commercial Security, to require large retailers to adopt loss prevention security measures. New legislation this evening. This first item is up for first reading and adoption by suspension of the rules. This is to authorize the mayor to enter into a contract with the Cuyahoga County General Health District for health services for 2022 and 2023. As was mentioned in the Finance Committee report, the total amount for 2022 is $68,154. For 2023 is $74,969. Any comments or questions?
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
Introduced by all and suspend the rules. Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution 2021-35 is on first reading, but we need to pass by suspension of the rules for timing issues. Amending Resolution 2021-24, approving of a construction budget and authorizing execution of a guaranteed maximum price amendment for the City Center project and declaring an emergency. As was mentioned in the Finance Committee, this is $2,475,376 increase. Any comments or questions? Right,
Introduce by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To introduce by all and suspend the rules, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2021-26 is up for first reading, but hope to pass by suspension of the rules. This is authorizing the updated capital improvement plan for 2021. This is a decrease of $585,000. Any comments or questions?
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Ordinance 2021-27 is on first reading, authorizing the capital improvement plan for 2022. This is still a working document, but right now it stands at $5,759,497. Ordinance 2021-28 is on first reading, but hope to pass by suspension of the rules. That's accepting the medical insurance renewal for Medical Mutual of Ohio for medical insurance coverage for eligible employees from January 1, 2022 to December 31st, 2023. The total increase is 10.17% for next year and a 0% increase for 2023. The overall life of the contract is $3,030,862.
Introduced by all, suspend the rules.
Second.
To suspend the rules, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
To adopt, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
That concludes our agenda for this evening. Does anyone on council or the administration or the mayor have anything they need to add?
Maybe.
Yes.
Just briefly, just a shout out to Mary Jo, wishing her a speedy recovery, and also thank you to Dawn for filling in. We appreciate it.
Anyone else? Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
To adjourn, Sue Grodick,
Yes.
Ron Van Kirk,
Yes.
Meg Ryan Shaki,
Yes.
Andy Selhertz,
Yes.
Kathy Pucci,
Yes.
Mary Belbeer,
Yes.
Kevin Tansky.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a blessed evening.